I hope you're all having a good Sunday. Some of you have gotten to know me on a personal level, but I want everyone to know I appreciate you all. When a person enters this arena, the YouTube and social media world, they open themselves up to anything and everything. Truth be told, if I had to do it all over again, I would have definitely avoided all of this. In the street, my life was never an open book, but as a result of this environment, it's the complete opposite. And it's one of the reasons I try never to entertain any questions aimed at my personal life or family. For me, they're off limits. I want you viewers to know that there are people who have reached out, a lot of people, and a few have truly put their necks out on the line. Do you have any idea why? All of them do what they do because they want you to hear the truth and not be fooled, and offering stories that reveal the mob's true identity. And a few of these people are literally my eyes and ears, and I appreciate them more than words can explain. And if there's one thing I'll do, I'll always protect their identities. Some tell me that they're literally speaking with guys who are trying to figure out who they are. Now, some people may say, oh, they're betraying their friends or their oath, if indeed they took one. I would have to say, from the stories they provided, the betrayers are not any of these people who speak with me. And if hypothetically any one of them took an oath, they're not speaking to law enforcement. To them, I'm a news outlet, and they want to spread the truth. For example, one particular guy had just told me there's so much inaccuracy being said on YouTube. And offhand, I don't know all of what's being said, but from time to time, either someone will send me something or I'll hear it myself. Personally, I go out of my way to avoid listening to other content creators. And the one thing I pride myself on is I never say something just to get clicks and never start a drama for the sake of views. I leave that to punk cowards. I'd like to have a talk with you viewers about Ernie Grillo and Staten Island. Let's talk a little bit about Staten Island. For those of you who don't know, I lived there for a few years after being released from prison in June of 2007, and did so up until 2011 or early 2012. During that time, being on parole in Staten Island was much better than Queens or Brooklyn, which is chaotic. The years I spent living on Staten Island were decent. I mainly kept a low profile and really wasn't going around anyone. After spending the amount of time that I did incarcerated, I needed to get my bearings, and I had no intentions of getting back involved in the street. With that said, of course I was aware of my surroundings, but avoided socializing with certain people. The only person that I did socialize with was Ernie Grillo, and he was shelved at the time. And Ernie and I weren't doing anything illegal. In fact, this is when Ernie screwed me out of a tile job that I got for us in New Jersey. Basically, he backdoored me and had other guys do the work and took a cut of the profit. And by no means did I just let it go. One day I told him that I wanted to approach the guy and get my money. Of course, he talked me out of it by saying that it would cause a big problem. Ernie was playing the role that the guy backdoored the both of us, which wasn't true. It was Ernie who devised the betrayal. And like I recently said, he's not a guy that you want to do business with. There are a lot of people, including Ernie's ex-brother-in-law, who've all got burned by Ernie in business. And in typical mob fashion, all those people he now categorized as being no good. And this is a common occurrence on Staten Island. As a member of the Lucchese family, I was no longer living on Staten Island, but rather Long Island. Nonetheless, I was placed in the Brooklyn faction, which just happened to be based in Staten Island. So in a way, I was tossed back on that island once again. Coincidentally, my grandfather, God rest his soul, despised Staten Island and didn't even like going over the bridge to get there. My time as a Lucchese member in Staten Island was naturally much different than while on parole and living there. At that point, I was in the company of a lot of different guys linked to different families and spent a great deal of time on the island. One of the things I picked up early on was that most guys would badmouth other guys. And there weren't many secrets on Staten Island. If something happened, word and news traveled faster than lightning. Another fact was that the woman knew way too much. And this can only be the fault of us men. I remember my captain at the time, Big John, hated Banano member Joe Valet. There was some type of beef going on that involved them both, and several sit-downs had to take place. Big John was always cursing and bad-mouthing this guy. So one day, Johnny Sideburns came to me laughing. He said, "Hey, listen to this. You'll enjoy it. You know how Big John hates Joe Valet? Well, things took a turn. The Bananos just made him a captain." And I laughed because it meant that Joe Valet was now Big John's equal. And this is a perfect example of how in that life, things can change from one day to the next. You may be above a guy in rank. Someone with Big John's character, back then, he used that to his advantage in dealing with Joe Valet. But then the tides turned, and Joe Valet became his equal. But let's take that thought a little further. Presently, Joe Valet's a captain, and Big John's nobody. You viewers have heard me say a lot. It's a tricky life to navigate, and you definitely have to play chess. Staten Island's an area where you could walk into any restaurant and see multiple guys from different families. Sometimes I would run into guys in the parks on the island because I like to go walking. And Staten Island is really not that big, so it's a common occurrence to run into people all the time. I'm sure law enforcement views the island as shooting fish in a barrel. All the families are there. The Lucchese's, Colombos, Bananos, Gambinos, and the West Side as well, all living and dealing in close proximity and under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Now, you've heard me speak about my time in Staten Island, pre-membership, and while I was a member. So let me speak about the present, post-membership. I've actually been on Staten Island on many occasions throughout the years for personal reasons. And it's always strange for me traveling through its areas because I see it so different now than I once did. And strangely enough, I never really ran into anyone that I once knew or knew me. But then again, it's not like I'm hanging out in restaurants there. I'm mostly just passing through. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and give it a like, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, help me to continue making them, you can donate with the Super Thanks icon down below, or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Let me quickly mention my blog, also called Sitdownnews, especially for those of you who still enjoy reading. The site can be found at sitdownnews.com and is a paid subscription. As most of you know, a great deal of information has been coming my way, a majority of which is about Staten Island. And from what I hear, I would have to say that Staten Island is at its worst now. Guys are dogging each other. It's bad. And let me just say, there are many things that either I can't repeat or choose not to. Some of what I hear is explosive, but I either have to hold off or in some instances have to keep it to myself. Trust me, I would love to share some things. A common theme on Staten Island is that guys are ripping one another to shreds, backbiting, double dealing, and outright screwing each other over. And the civilians that are on the island no longer respect the mob. There's been numerous legitimate guys who've been screwed out of money. And the word is out. If you lend any of these guys money, it's highly likely you'll never see that money again. And that's true. I just spoke about this in a recent video. And by the way, one of the guys in that video has started getting paid his money. In regard to Staten Island, as one guy put it, it's a cesspool. You have a lot of ingredients in the pot, but most of the ingredients is spoiled, so you know how that turns out.